Yeah, this is my first 48 hours in Moldova. So this is actually my first time here, and it's been really enjoyable. I was just telling Olga last night, I'm like, this is really cool. I don't know why I didn't come here sooner. Just because I currently, majority of my career has been in the US, but I've spent the last 5 years or so in Serbia. So not far from here, but just to kick things off, because we only have 20 minutes, as you can see, we're discussing taking Eastern European companies, startups to the US market. And we've got Vlad Gliga here from Rubik Hub, who's going to help us talk through that, because that's part of their core mission. And yeah, so just a brief introduction, try to keep it under 30 seconds for my background. I built and scaled tech companies in the US, 4 or 5 startups that 2 of them are unicorns, 1 got acquired, and others have raised tens of millions of dollars. And my core focus now is as an angel investor. I've invested in several companies in Serbia and other emerging markets. I also work on building ecosystems. Met Olga several years ago in Turkey, and that's how I ended up here. And you know, to try to connect the dots. And yeah, looking forward to a fruitful discussion with Vlad. But Vlad, actually would love for you to do a quick intro so everyone knows you and what your mission is.
Perfect, thank you. But before I do that, I would love to meet the room. I would go one by one to present and pitch. Ready? Don't feel the pressure. I'm not going to do that. But how many of you are founders, already having a startup, working on a startup? Okay. How many of you are dreaming to build a startup, but didn't start it yet? Beautiful. How many of you are students or fresh graduates? All right. So more professionals in the room. All right. Talking about earlier discussion.
Yeah.
Great. I'm Vlad, the CEO of Rubik Hub. I would better tell the story, how we started, but very briefly. We wanted to inspire the young generation in Romania to build something that the world needs. We wanted them to believe they can build products and services that the world will need and take control of their life, career, so on and so forth. And we started doing that by building a community of mentors, mainly diaspora, and then friends of diaspora. And with that community, we wanted to share with the young students in Romania the knowledge that those people had abroad. And fast forward, today we have programs, a full journey of programs for startups, from ideation, prototyping to acceleration, scale up, and investment readiness. We focus on startups from Central Eastern Europe mainly, so now just Romania. So please pitch if you have a great idea and you are really ready to build on it.
Thanks, Vlad. So when we were discussing the structuring of the panel, you wanted to structure it in terms of the good, the tough, and the unexpected, because there's plenty of all around, right? So we're going to start with the good part, and wanted to ask you, starting with a positive note from your perspective, what makes the U.S. market attractive to Eastern European startups, and what do you see as the exciting opportunities for companies to expand into the U.S. market?
Mm-hmm. Okay. First, another question. How many of you that do have a startup or are willing to have a startup are considering scaling abroad, and abroad from CE? Okay, positive, great. I would say it's a high percentage based on those ones that mentioned they want to build.
Great.
That's a great quality that I would start with. In the early days in Central Eastern Europe, people were afraid to think they can be relevant for the world and build something that the world needs. But nowadays, I see more and more confidence, and that's growing. And that's the first thing, to dream, to believe you can do it. And there you have the drive and motivation to build it. If you start afraid, you're going to lose a lot of precious time. But the qualities that I will mention because many of the founders I've met, they are not aware of those qualities. And they don't put too much emphasis on it when they present themselves, when they pitch it. And it's important always to present what is your differentiator, your added value. Resilience. For startups that scaled in Western Europe or in US, the investors, after working with those founders, said they haven't seen this resilience in the local founders. So the capacity of Central Eastern Europe founders to build, live, sell with limited resources, it was for them something amazing. I would call it the capacity to live frugal. So with limited resources, we can build a lot more than other founders. Then, of course, the tech abilities, and that's something you do not meet it in Western Europe. Even in the US, people with tech abilities are more prone to pursue careers that are well paid, right? But we have those skills and we can put them into practice in our own startup. I'm not sure if you know the UiPath unicorn from Romania. Okay, no, of course, someone that worked there and helped the startup to scale. Imagine they lived for 10 years in a flat building a product that they believed in and they were sure it's going to work someday. But they lived in with limited resources for 10 years before becoming unicorn, and that should say a lot. Or we have one startup that scaled to US. They're still bootstrapping, even though they have 300K ARR, still surviving, living in New York and selling in New York. So we're able to do that abroad. I think we learned how to solve problems quickly and efficient. I'm laughing when I see this concept promoted in other countries, Western markets. Less is more. We lived with less. Less was everything for us. So we don't have to do the backward movie because we are there, still are there, and we are able to do that. I remember one of our startup that is right now having few millions in ARR. I'm still traveling with them and still doing couch surfing, calling friends to give us a spot. Right? We never took hotels, and they still do that as founders, and they're in Series B right now. I always appreciate that because you do the most from the money you have. Doesn't matter if it's less or more.
No, thank you for that, Vlad. I think I'll just add a little bit more color because I absolutely agree with you around the resilience of Eastern European, I would even just say like diaspora startups or founders in general. There's a resourcefulness, right, that you've had to learn because of limited resources, among other things. And if you look at the landscape of really successful startups that are now like major companies in the U.S., majority of the founders were immigrants. Right, so kind of that resiliency, that resourcefulness, that grittiness is built into us. And like I'm an immigrant myself from Cambodia. That's where my family's from, and these are things that you have to deal with early on and often until you reach a point where you're successful. But I think it's a good segue to talk about the tough things and the challenging things that you have to manage as you expand into a U.S. market. But can you share how startups that you've worked with through Rubik and maybe just personally have navigated, the cultural context, the operational, and any other challenges in expanding to like the U.S. market? Because I think it'd be helpful for the group here.
Yeah, I think this would describe the most what we have to improve. And that is the winner mindset, because we lived frugal. We are afraid of success. We are afraid to think of success, and we're afraid to pitch it. And in practical examples, when startups go in US to pitch, they start with incremental growth, while that ecosystem expects the opposite, the success story, and present it backwards or deconstruct the success to today. So we're afraid to say we are going to be that big, take that market, have this revenue by this time. You don't have to say I'm a unicorn, it's too vague term, but you can do predictions. I'm going to reach this ARR by this time, then I'm going to do this and that. We take just the next step, I hope I will get the first customers and then other 10 and then reach 100K ARR. You don't see the passion and the motivation there. So success mindset is you to think positively and optimistic, first of all, for your own sake of mind. That will give you the positive energy, but then you convince the other people you have the drive and motivation. If you are skeptical, the other ones will be 10 times skeptical. When you start with the end story, it helps you to build on that vision. It helps you to have clarity what you have to do, but then gives clarity to what you have to pitch. Another thing that I've discovered working with startup scaling to US is they were sad when they saw they have a better product, maybe than the competition, but they still lose clients or are not able to land the client. The tough lesson was the networking, the ability of other people to do better networking even with products that were weaker. The power of networking and the power of storytelling, it's, thank you, the light is on. First, I said something right probably just now. Woo! Yeah, I would talk about founder brand. It's not marketing, it's not fluff, but founder brand is very important. And founder brand starts by you telling to the world the vision you have and the change you want to create. It's you talking. You are the main ambassador and the first ambassador. I see in networking events or in events, Central Eastern European founders shy of approaching people, shy of telling who they are, shy of addressing a question from the audience. Hey, I'm Vlad from Rubik Hub. I have this question. That's the first pitch you do. Presenting your vision and what you want to do, it's not fluff. We have to do that as much as possible. And we have to learn the storytelling. We live in the era of storytelling. So if we're a founder, we have to create the story of who we are, why we want to build this, and why we believe we are going to be successful. It's beyond the deck, the technical deck. It's the story, and it's not what you pitch, but how you pitch.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're saying a lot of this is related to the mindset that been instilled in us and our need to be able to shift that mindset into more, like, call it a growth mindset instead of something that's static. And I think the other, and I'll just kind of add this piece before we move on to kind of to the final part of it is, oftentimes what I find is people tell themselves stories in their heads that actually aren't really true in reality.
Yeah.
So you have to be really careful around a story that you sell to yourself, right? Versus what's actually the reality on the ground with your ability to execute, in this case, taking your business to the US market. And as, there's many founders and other people who support founders here, and the roller coaster that startups are, there's unexpected challenges in multiple ways. So this is actually the last kind of part of our discussion is what do you see as like the main challenges or things that come up that are unexpected that founders need to navigate properly to be able to have a successful market entry into the US?
Okay, I will say this. Even when you do everything right, even then, unexpected happens. And as the French is saying, the shit can hit the fan. So don't be afraid of that, because it's going to happen. If you're building, if you're working, for sure you're going to do mistakes. So let's take that as a training and as a learning. But when you go abroad, first thing you have to take in consideration, you are going outside your culture. You are going to meet different cultures. For example, when you go to US, I had founders doing sales, and after a week of sales, they were saying, hey, we have 100 clients. How come? Because I talked to them, they said yes. All right. And that yes was maybe in the best case scenario, or I just want to close the discussion and that's it, but there's no yes behind it. I recommend you Culture Map book, amazing book, you have to go through it. Also, if we talk about books, Mom Test, how to speak clearly, simply to the customers, but understanding the culture, you will understand the details between the lines. Also, I see very often founders falling in love with their product, and when you go to different markets, you will learn that they love the tech, but they want you to package it differently, or that's tough actually, and I think it's the most difficult discussion to have with founders. The game changer feature you've built for weeks, maybe months, it's not validated by the customers. So you're afraid to go back to the drawing board and rewrite everything you designed for that market. So iteration has to be there on the board, even if it's empty right now, but you will have to fill in. Usually we have this discussion with our startups after weeks of trying to sell. What did you learn new? What did you integrate new in your product? What changes have you made? For sure you have to do that. So if you say everything is fine, you were not listening. And I think this is the capacity that the founders should develop. It's not the talking, but the listening. And here is probably where we still have to work on. So when I said storytelling, talk about your business, but don't push your product. Listen to the customer, build the product, build the features one by one, understanding the needs from that market.
Thank you, Vlad. So, and I'll just kind of add some additional color to that based on my own experience expanding businesses in other markets. And you brought up a core point, which is understanding the customers that are in the market that you're looking to serve, right? And oftentimes it's almost running a brand new go-to-market strategy with doing voice of the customer, understanding what pivots you need to make with the product that they're buying. There's the pricing exercise, what you charge in one market, you probably need to reassess for this additional market that you're going to move into. And also understand who your competitors are in this market, right? And why are you so different and differentiated that the customers in that market are willing to pay for your product. So we've got about just 2 minutes, and I like audience engagement and interaction. So we wanted to open it up to the audience if anyone had specific questions for either myself or Vlad.
I have a question in the back. There you go. Just throw it. Until then, I will just say something.
Question ready. Get your question ready. Start asking it. Start asking the question.
Hello. My name is Ina. Nice to meet you. Thank you for the discussion. I wanted to ask you about the expanding to US or starting with US. So if you have a B2C startup, how is better to go straight away to US market, launch there because the market is bigger, we have a big potential for earning more money, whatever, and then scale back to Europe? Or we go both ways and adapt the product for both markets. In your opinion, what's best for a B2C startup in health tech?
Health tech. Oh, okay. Should I go? Yeah. Tough environment, health tech, right? What would come top of my mind is test in your home country market, get some early validation, especially where it's an industry strongly regulated. It's also very costly. US to get FDA approval costs a lot. I would start from the local market, get the validation, get the CE certification. If you get the CE certification, it's easier to get the FDA certification. If you go the opposite, first to FDA, it's a tough process. But if you have it in Europe, they will take in consideration that, and it's easier to scale there. To sell in US, especially the medtech, it's very expensive. Even if you sell it as a founder, if you go on your own, it's still costly. I would test it here, and then I would go there.
I just want to add just one last comment to that because I know we're out of time. So I agree. I would start with the local market because if it's health tech related, the one thing you need to understand in the U.S. market is what are the rules and regulations at the national level, but also at the state level, because they're very different.
Yeah.
And you need to understand that very clearly. Otherwise, it's going to cost you a ton of money to be able to execute on that.
In thanking you for what you brought to the discussion for founders and for us all, let's quote you like very briefly. If there's something that Vlad said at Startup Moldova Summit 2025, that was like fill in the blanks, like 3, 4, 5 words at max.
Understand the customer and be open to iterate.
Okay, cool. It fits. Cool. Keo,
Come back and do this again.
come back and do this again. Cool. A big round of applause for Keo and Vlad talking us through how is it to actually scale to the US.